Chapter Chapter 3. Tonight old Mick, the king of the beatniks, came in a dream and asked, "When you going to get to the beatnik parts?" I explained, "First I got to show how I got to be far out." Smiling like a sage, he said, "Okay, man, but up here in heaven, we're dying to read about ourselves, so hurry up." In 1951, Mum and I listened to When a Girl Marries, a radio serial that began with, "Dedicated to all those in love and to all who can remember." We laughed at the melodramatics, but the idea that true love brings happiness burrowed deep into my psyche. I read the Radio Call Weekly Radio Guide newspaper. They printed them back then, pretending I was a station owner choosing programs. 15-minute kids serials like Hop Harrigan and Speed King, King of Space and Superman came on from 4 to 6 p.m, and I'd act out the stories. At 6 p.m, Dad listened to Racing Roundup. That was race results. Then Mum turned to tuned the radio to music from the movies. And I actually thought the show came live from our local theatre. And I'd urge her, "Hurry up, Mum, music from the movies is on, so the picture will start soon." Outside the Milestone Astra Theatre, I'd scan the coming attraction posters with their tantalising hints of film plots, and my mate Pete and I invented a picture show game by cutting large movie ads out of the newspapers to paste on our shed. Every 3 days I'd change the program, and Pete pretended to buy tickets. Inside that joyous shed we had a lolly shop and scoured streets for candy wrappers, empty candy wrappers to display. Pete pretended to be a patron and talk about the movie he'd just seen. On Saturday, Dad listened to the races on the radio. This is before TV. And he lent me his form guide to pick rides. The arm of our lounge chair became a horse. My school ruler became a whip. And Dad folded my plastic rain hat into a jockey's cap and watched me ride. When I was 7, Adelaide had a giant rainstorm. Bashing with a hammer, Mum drove nails into the mantelpiece and a door and tied string between them to dry her washing. I stood at the window watching the rain and pretending I was a salty sea captain struggling to hold the wheel of an old rusty freighter. Waves crashed and hail lashed my cabin. I drew a chart of my ship's travels. Then I noticed that Mum was tugging on the string. The clothes had dried, but she couldn't get the nails out, so she went outside to find Dad's claw hammer. I ran over, wrapped the string around my hand and yanked. "I'll get it out and Mum will think I'm strong," I thought. The nail stuck, so I tugged at it. Zing! Out came the nail attached to the string. Swap! The nail buried itself in my eyeball. I screamed and Mum rushed me to the children's hospital. A rough-voiced man poured water in my smashed eye. A warm velvet cloud was pushed onto my face. It hummed and throbbed and smothered until I was surrounded by sickening purple cotton clouds that turned black. I woke up between cold sheets and heard kids whimpering. My eyes were bandaged and my wrists were tied to cold bed rails. Something sounded like tin pots being thrown. Kids giggled and a man yelled, "Shut up, you bludgers!" My imagination said that I was in the overcrowded orphanage in Oliver Twist. An angry lady told me, "Stop crying, you'll hurt your eye." It must have been a nurse. I didn't want her to be angry, so I stopped. A nurse talked about going to a dance at the Palais, and I murmured, "My mum goes to the Palais." The nurse said, "Oh, little mummy's boy can talk, can he?" I felt sad. My eye ached. I whispered a prayer. "Dear God and Jesus, please let Mum come. Amen." But back then, visits in hospital were only allowed twice a week for 1 hour. I whimpered in bed. The nurses' voices dripped scorn. "Little sissy boy, cries like a girly girl." A kid laughed and I felt ashamed. Another nurse said, "You won't get better if you move your eyes." No kid spoke to me, but I was glad, because they sounded naughty and they made fart noises. Two of them were talking about polio and how physio would be coming soon to hurt their legs. A grown-up yelled, "Shut up and be quiet!" And a funny man answered him, "Shut up, everyone who yells shut up." That made me laugh. Doctors touched my eye and shone a bright light. I whimpered. Somebody stuck a bedpan under me and said, "Quick, do your business." I couldn't, so they put nasty stuff in my mouth. Then I got a pain in the tummy. One day Mum's kind voice said, "Doctor says you can come home tomorrow and take the bandages off your eyes." My misery vanished. My heart soared in joyous flight, and I could feel that the weather outside was sunny. At home, a nice doctor unwrapped my eyes and gave me a patch to wear. He said, "Now you're a pirate." I hallucinated strange kids were sneaking around trying to steal my toy cars. It might have been withdrawal from the morphine they'd given me for pain. I begged sceptical Dad to spread sand on the pathways so we'd see footprints of any creeping villains. One night we went to the movies and saw Chaplin. With my right eye, details were a blur, but my left was good. When the statue in City Lights was unveiled by posh, funny-talking people, and Charlie Chaplin was asleep in the statue's arms, I actually rolled on the floor laughing. I'd not known that men could be teachers, but in grade 3 we had one. Mr. Marg had patches on his elbows and chalk dust on his back. He caned us on the legs for talking, and I dreaded the lessons I'd once loved. But he made the class pay attention, so we got great at maths and spelling and geography. Poor Mr. Marg had a face just like an actual pig, so I bet he didn't get laid much. I ran into him 15 years later and told him he'd been a great teacher. I thought it might cheer him up. On Wednesdays, a nervous young Protestant minister told Bible stories at school. He never disciplined, so it became a free-for-all of wisecracks and fart noises. I liked religion for causing such fun, and the word of Jesus snuck into my vacant subconscious. Rosemary Carter sneaked over to my desk. When teacher's back was turned, she carved F-U-K into it with a knife, and we giggled because I sensed it was a naughty thing to write. Later, we were both called to the headmaster and told to write fuck on a piece of paper. I knew it was a trap, so I wrote differently, but Rosemary spelled F-U-K and was found guilty. 2 kids pushed me into a boxthorn bush, and Granny made a soap and sugar poultice to draw out the thorns. Later, the same kids teased me, and I ran to escape. Keith Cridland and Trevor Blucher chased me for 2 blocks, and it looked as if they'd give me my first taste of violence. I saw 2 girls from school watching. My fear evaporated, and I became Errol Flynn in Robin Hood and swung wild jabs and hooks in the boys' direction. The resistance worked, and they ran away. The girls giggled, and that night I lay in bed joyously thinking, those girls think I'm brave. I wasn't bullied again until age 11, when a kid who hung around the school dunnies grabbed my nuts every few days. Often he just made the notion, but I tensed whenever he was near. He stopped only after I punched him hard in the nuts and ran. Okay, that's the end of chapter 3.